Unfortunately, people watch that and think, oh, that's how I got to do it. And you do that enough, you're probably going to zoom bang right into a place you do not want to be shot. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Podcast US. Thanks for joining us here on one of the world's biggest gun talk programs. I am, of course, your host, Brent Wheat, and I am joined by, I think last week he was illustrious. This week he shall be, I don't know.
Confounded.
Confounded Roy Huntington. Right. Hey there, Confounded me. Roy.
That would be me.
Oh, well, thanks to everybody for joining us here on the program. We've got another great topic we're going to talk about. But hey, Roy, I mentioned it last week. You know what we've got this week that we didn't have last week? We've got a big name sponsor. So here's a quick word from our friends at Holosun. When performance matters, shooters trust Holosun. From law enforcement officers and military professionals to competitive shooters, hunters, and everyday firearms enthusiasts, Holosun builds optics for people who demand reliability when it counts. Whether you're looking for a red dot sight, magnifier, laser, or weapon light, Holosun delivers the durability, clarity, and precision you need on the range or in the field. Their products are proven through real-world use and backed by a commitment to push optic technology forward. When you're ready to upgrade your gear, learn more at holosun.com. And thanks to our great friends over there at Holosun, and they've joined us as a title sponsor here on the Guns Podcast US. So, Roy, this topic kind of came to me suddenly, and we discussed it and thought it was a pretty good one. So, we're going to talk about all those useful shooting skills that people don't talk about. And what was it you said, Roy, when I first said this? You had a great quote.
Well, and this is where people lose their way. The most important thing about shooting isn't shooting.
Exactly. What? That sounds awfully zen or something, but it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
I just made that up. I mean, people who are teaching should have been saying this for decades. I mean, maybe some do. I don't know. I've never had but because everything seems hyper focused on the draw and acquiring the target and trigger press and all that. And that's the period on the end of all the other stuff leading up to it. And I think that's what we would like to chat about.
Yeah. Well, I made a whole list of things, and we'll go through this and probably not get to all of them. But the one that I really think is the most important skill, and it's one of those things, again, it doesn't maybe make for a great thumbnail on a video, but I truly think this is like one of the key, most important things that you could talk about or embody in shooting, and that is patience. Patience, something that is in generally short supply in modern society right now, but it's really critical. So, Roy, when you think about shooting, I think you are patience defined. So, talk about your view, kind of on that idea.
Well, I think you're right. I think it's among the very important things would be patience, and I see people's frustration levels, like you say, up off the charts about everything. The gas station line is too long. The checkout lady's too taking her time. Your apple was not the tastiest it's ever been. And so people are getting pissed off and they get, short tempered, and that kind of stuff does not help when you're trying to do something that's very precise, and technical, and especially something that involves deadly force.
Yeah.
So patience, as you say, should be at the top of all this. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry. Everyone always thinks when they talk about concealed carry, it's all about going to guns.
Yeah.
And I mean, first of all, that happens almost minusculely rarely amongst us, and I mean, that great the other day at the In-N-Out where that off-duty guy and the other,
the other
suppressed
citizen.
FN. I mean, my gosh, what are the odds of that?
I didn't know that was part of the equation. How cool.
Yeah. He had trained before. He wasn't like a zealot or anything, but he carried this thing in a shoulder holster, because you'll see the video of him, and he stands up. He has a good stance. He takes aim. He's got a suppressed 5.7, believe it or not.
Wow.
He takes 2 or 3 shots, and then he runs over to a bush or something. It was all great. So, but anyway, doesn't happen very often. And so we can avoid a lot of that happening by engaging what you say about patience,
Yep.
but because, you can have, as we say all the time, you have the best sight picture in the world and you mess it up with the trigger press. But you can have the best sight picture in the world and you can have the best trigger press in the world. But if you're not patient, you're going to mess that up.
Yeah. And there's kind of a corollary. That's an easy word for me to say, right? Corollary to this that it's almost kind of one thing, but with patience also comes understanding yourself. I do tend to be a little action oriented. And part of that is I get real down on myself when I'm not shooting perfect. And I've had that happen where I'm like, oh, that's terrible. And somebody will go, no, that's pretty fair group given the circumstances. I'm like, well, it's not perfect. And sometimes I'm okay moving past that. Other times I get really wrapped around the axle. And there's a semi-famous story that I've told. I was at gun sight in a shoot-off, and we were in the final shoot-off, and I had done pretty poorly, and Ken Campbell walked up and he goes, you know the advice? And I said, what? And he goes, just shoot. I'm like, what? Just shoot. Don't all that other stuff, just shoot. And that was important for me. I walked away, took a kind of deep breath, and I realized that kind of peace settled over me. And it's like, patience and peace. And I know how to shoot. I've done this before. And the last shot, I can't do anything about. It's already downrange. Just shoot. And I'll be darned if I didn't shoot really good and won the shoot off between two classes. So, that patience, the understanding, the not getting down on yourself. Well, my gun's not perfect. Well, it's only a 9 instead of a whatever. As we talked to one of our episodes, few episodes ago, that, well, I've got a X, but I'm going to get a Y someday. Who cares? And you're a great one to talk about that, Roy, is, be present in what you've got and be happy with what you got. It's probably fine anyway. So just being patient and understanding about yourself, your gear, the situation, and then just go shoot. So.
Well, you're exactly right. Be happy with the gun you have in this situation. Use the tools in hand. I think that we've established patience is critical, and it is critical. It may be, at the top here, but when you finally are standing there and you're on the range or you're in the hunting field or you're confronting a bad guy and it's gone to condition red. It's time to shoot now, right? For whatever reason. That is really a culmination of everything that we're talking about. And it starts all the way back to when you decided you wanted to have a gun, and
Yep.
Maybe that's arguably the most important thing about shooting is when you make that decision that I'm going to assume the responsibility, I'm going to assume the obligations, I'm going to assume all these things. Pretty important, decision there. And everything is built on that. So after you make the decision to buy a gun, now you go through the process of what kind of a gun and how am I going to buy it and where am I going to buy it and who do I talk to and and then the next one is maybe you actually buy the gun. Well, now you have to learn all about ammunition and safety and how to maintain it and then you learn manipulation skills and and then you learn how to behave at the range and then you learn how to avoid idiots, and then you learn where you can hunt small game and what ammo you need for small game. You see, in other words, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of things that get you to the point to where you're standing there about to press a trigger.
Exactly.
And one more thing, and you said it before, was that's the most glamorous part, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone has that, every YouTube video in the world starts with some guy with tattoos on his arm and sunglasses and a beard holding a gun like this just over the camera's shoulder, looking very serious, going boom, 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 boom. I don't ever see one of those videos where the guy is starting saying, this is a gun.
How glamorous is that?
I know. Well, I saw a really good, it was a football coach and somebody said, what was your secret to bringing this team along? And he said, well, I started at the basics. And the guy said, well, like, what do you mean? And he, he held up a football and he said, this is a football. And it's
Well,
like,
that's a perfect that's a skill that I didn't put on my little sheet here, but an appreciation of fundamentals. And I take that from, it doesn't matter what sport or hobby you practice, anybody that's really good at it, whether again it's a professional athlete, it's a really skilled woodworker, it's a great shooter, every one of them will tell you the exact same thing. It's the basics, it's the fundamentals. And you have to have an appreciation for that. And that's, again, I think something that thanks to the gun media, thanks to YouTube, thanks to social media, we've lost. I think it was always a problem, especially when you're younger. You don't appreciate the basics. You want to, as you told the story, Roy, of the guy that I think it was Clint Smith's. Well, when do we jump through the door and then jump up and then, stab? And how about we work on shooting the gun first? So I think in this day and age, you have to have that appreciation for the fundamentals.
well, fundamentals are everything. Everything above fundamentals is the base of no matter how advanced and how fast and how good and how cool you are. It all goes back to fundamentals. NASA, for crying out loud, crashed a $200 million spaceship because someone forgot that the Europeans measured in the metric system and we measured in inches, and they forgot to do those conversions. And talk about the basics,
Yeah.
And so there is almost the epitome of what we're talking about. So you can have the coolest gun in the world and the best red dot sight and the hottest, coolest, ammunition in the world and the best skimpy sunglasses and all that stuff. But unless you have already done through that whole process that we're talking about and paid attention to the basics, all you will have is a pretty picture of yourself for your Facebook page.
Which is unfortunately the currency that we tend to measure ourselves in nowadays. And we all know it's not a good idea, but that's the trap that we tend to fall into. And I'll tell when I was on SWAT back in the day, I feel like we had a pretty good team, and I feel like we had the reputation of having a pretty good team. And one of the things that I feel made us so strong is that we had such an emphasis on fundamentals. So if we were practicing these high-speed door entries and all that stuff, we would do one step, reset, do it again, step, reset. We'd do that 20, 30, 40 times, step, stop, reset, step. Okay, now we're going to go step, 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 step. Okay,
sure.
This guy, and we did that over and over, and it was mind-numbing. But I guarantee you, when we, did the actual, okay, we're going to do a button hook and crisscross entry and zoom, bow, bang, and shooting and all that stuff, we were pretty good at it because step, reset, step, fundamentals. And that comes from basketball and football and baseball and golf and all that. But again, I think that's, you made such a good point that I'd never thought about. We've lost sight of what those fundamentals are. So
everyone. And I think you just have to open YouTube on whatever landing page you're on, and everything that you see are just whatever the emotional moment is, even if it's completely baloney, which most of it is. All those people going, this will get you killed when you water the lawn, or it's like, really, I think, I'm not even sure how I can say this or not, but I'm going to make a video like that. This is a gun.
Yeah.
If there really is something that could get you killed doing something, the way to do that is to be serious about it and explain it, and don't be hysterical, right? Yep. So the guy who's should be going, I would like to talk to you about a technique when you draw that could be dangerous for you. And then it's like, now as adults, we should say, oh, that's interesting. I should watch that. Yep. We shouldn't have to be a 5-year-old that goes to wherever the brightest color is.
Yep.
You know,
And I got a perfect example of that, Roy. Appendix carry.
oh,
I know that's the flavor of the moment, and I'm not a fan, but I'm not saying you can't do it. YouTube commenters, I'm not saying you can't do it, but there are countless examples of which I know too personally where people have shot themselves in places you don't want to get shot. And I think a lot of that comes back to, again, I'm going to blame the YouTubers. All you see is these high speed draws, a split second, produce your gun. And unfortunately, what people tend to do is they tend to wrap their finger into that trigger guard and they're pulling the trigger and the gun does what it's designed to do. And where does it send that bullet? And I just can't, I don't think I've ever seen, I'm not saying it's not out there, but I've never seen the video where the guy doesn't go, okay, first step, get a firing grip. Second step, make sure your finger is straight on the trigger. That it's always zoom bang. And unfortunately, people watch that and think, oh, that's how I got to do it. And you do that enough, you're probably going to zoom bang right into a place you do not want to be shot. So I think that's a good example. If you're going to do it, take it step by step, take the fundamentals. And then if you choose to, that's fine. That's your business. I choose not to.
Well, I saw the video of the guy who just did it lately.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. God. And he took credit for it. He said, you know what? It wasn't the gun. It wasn't the holster. It wasn't the ammo. It was me.
Yeah.
He said, and if I could go back, what would I do? He says, I wouldn't appendix carry. I wouldn't appendix carry with a striker fired gun, and I would practice more and all that. And so he did it when he was doing a draw. You're talking about drawing is interesting. This is exactly what we're talking about being patient in that, like if I'm teaching somebody and they say, oh, I got this gun and I want to learn how to shoot so I can go compete in the weekend matches. Great. They'll stop by and we'll visit a little bit and I'll look at their gun and make sure everything's okay. And then they want to go out and start shooting, right? But depending on their degree of how much patience and preparation they've had, right? If we're going to draw from a holster, I do just what you're talking about with baby steps. In other words, it's not draw, it's get a firing grip.
Yep.
Now let go back to your surrender position. Now get a firing grip, right?
Yep.
Go back to surrender position and do that 200 times, right?
Yep.
And so then now it's, okay, now we'll get a firing grip and now unsnap the gun, right? Yeah. So then we'll do that 500 times. Get a firing grip, unsnap the gun. And it's a miracle, isn't it? Because you lived it, I've lived it thousands of times. Is it when you do that, now when you finally apply it all, it goes so much smoother and more reliably. Yep. And especially if you've done your homework and you have the right ammo and the right holster and the right gun and all the preparation,
Well, the perfect example is gun sight. I've gone through it countless times in like the 250, the intro class. 1. Okay, reset. 1. All that is doing is firing grip and moving your hand out of the way. And you will do that 20, 30, 40 times till the instructor's satisfied you've actually got it in your head. Then you'll go to 2, and then you go to 3, and then 4, so that's a perfect example. And the reason they do that, because the emphasis on the basics. And, I've often said Louis Arbuck, famed instructor, often said he's never seen an advanced gunfight. He's just seen the basics under much more pressure. So if you got those basics solid, you'll be plenty fast and smooth and all that stuff. But if you don't have the basics, no amount of great technique and YouTube-worthy slow-mo video that you've shot is going to make up for those shortcomings. So,
well, Clint always teaches this, is that advanced tactics are just the basics applied. But what I found, and it's with anything, tool skills or anything else, is that if you can hone your skill level to the nth degree, right? If you have time and you have patience and you practice countless times over and over and over again. But of course, like in shooting situations, it will degrade to the most basic fundamentals, chances are.
Yep.
Because it's not going to be a perfect situation. So, you're going to be picking yourself up from the ground after just being knocked down and realizing he has a knife and is about to jump on you, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can't apply those super refined, stance and grip and sight picture and trigger squeeze and all that. You're going to automatically default to the basics. And I would like to go on record in saying those basics also include everything that we talked about in preparation. And so if you messed up on deciding to carry a gun, maybe that was a really bad idea for you. Maybe you're a hothead, and you shouldn't have a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you messed up on that first decision, then that's not going to end well on the final decision. So if you made the right decision, I'm carrying a gun, you made the right decision to buy a certain gun, you made the right decision to get training, you made the right decision with the ammunition, you made the right decision to shoot regularly at the range, you made the right decision to have more situational awareness. I mean, you see where there's a lot of steps.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we almost never hear about them, or if we do, it's in passing.
Yeah.
Make sure you get training. Anyway, back to how to look cool when you shoot.
You just encapsulated YouTube right there.
I mean, that is it.
Yep.
That is it. And I have seen, what's hysterical to me are the people who are not cool and they're trying to look and act cool. Yeah. So when you weigh 387 pounds and you're geared up like a SWATologist and your gut's sticking out the bottom and you're acting like, and when you deploy, I'm sorry, but it's so laughable. And it makes me sad that some people actually see that and go, oh gosh, she must be an operator. And, we should know. I mean, if that was me, I'll be the first to admit right now, I injured my back pretty badly not too long ago. I don't see as well as I used to. I wear hearing aids. I'm getting arthritis in my fingers. I talk about how that affects me in my shooting and my ability to use tools. And what I see is people in comments, especially, just say, you know what, man, I thought it was just me. Nobody ever talks about this stuff. It's all what you're saying. It's high speed, low drag stuff. They're not doing me any good because I can't do that.
Yep.
So,
well, I always have to laugh. This is something that I have enjoyed for years. Remember when plate carriers became a thing? If you attended any tactical training, you would see the guy I call Attila the stockbroker, fully tricked out with all just the right gear. And you get to talking to him and he's, well, yeah, I'm a mechanic, or I sell paint at Walmart, or typically it was a professional, I'm an attorney. Okay. I could see a situation where maybe you would need a plate carrier, but why? Really? I've never worn a plate carrier in training except when I was ordered to by the instructor. And some of that was SWAT related because you gear up in the gear you're going to wear. But
sure.
Unless you keep the plate carrier next to your bed, and that's always an integral part of what you're going to gear up with, you look kind of silly going to the range and doing it. And then, like Roy said, if you're, 350 pounds and, you put your helmet on and it looks like, they've had to put it on with a bottle capper. You're not really striking the fear in the hearts of the bystanders you think you are. So I don't know. Anyway,
I was at a training class one time, and when I had time and in the early years, especially as being an editor of a magazine, you go to a lot of training classes and stuff, right? So I was at an event and there were a couple of gun writers there. These are pretty big boys, like third stringers. I hate to say that, but they've published like 1 or 2 articles or something. So they get invited to go to this wherever it was, and we're shooting guns. And whoever was training us might have been Todd Jarrett, who's a pretty funny guy. He's a well-known top-level competition shooter, if you don't know him. And but he's got a good sense of humor. Well, there was about a dozen of us, and we're shoot. And he says, okay, now I want you to sit down on your butt on the ground, and I want you to engage that target. And then I want you to get up, keeping your gun safely pointing downrange, and then engage the target again. And so these couple of big guys, and they're like, grumbling, and they don't really want to do this and all that, so boom, down we go, bang, bang, bang. Well, both of these guys, it was a goat rope to watch them get up again. And, their muzzles like moving all around, and we're all like watching them rather than watching our targets. And I will always remember, because I think it was Todd. Todd walked up and said, you should probably seriously evaluate whether or not you should be carrying a gun. And if so, then you need to get yourself in shape so you can actually do the job that you need to do if something happens.
Yeah.
And then he turned around and walked away. And we're like going, what he said.
Roy, you just fat shamed. We're not allowed to do that anymore.
I fat shamed. I mean,
all people are healthy. No, they're not.
I don't want to go on the ground because I'm going to be hell pressed to get back up off the ground.
Yeah.
But you have to be aware of that. And that's part of that preparation thing that we're talking about. It's like, I absolutely changed the way I carry guns. I changed the way I look at situations, knowing what my limitations are. And so, if you go down this long list of preparations, all the things that really are important, right? It's a long list. And if you go down there, even right now, when you're done with this show, stop for a minute, maybe get a pencil and a pen and go all the way back to when you bought a gun and just say, what did I do after that? And have I given enough attention to that? Did I just buy the first holster that I saw because some guy on YouTube said it was a good holster? Yeah. Or did you do the work, and try to work your way through that process until you end up where you are in your mind confronting the bad guy in your hallway at 3:00 in the morning. And so if you've made all the best decisions you can before that, then you'll do the best you can. But if there's gaps there, you're going to find them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've got like I said, a whole list here, but I've got one where we're pushing time already, which I'm not surprised. But here's the one skill that I think again gets a big short shift especially in modern life, and that is observation. And of course, everybody thinks, oh, well, yeah, looking for the bad guy or the game or the next, game being critters or the next target on the competitive stage. But I'm talking about just observation as a whole, whether you're on the range training and the instructor's down talking to that person. Are you paying attention? Or are you thinking about, oh, I haven't been on my phone in over 7 minutes. I need to see what they're saying on social media. Or, boy, my target looks really good. I can't wait to take a picture of it. Or, hey, look, a squirrel. Are you observing the instructor? Are you observing other students? There may be some you want to keep an eye on because they are dangerous to your health. Of course, in the hunting field, not just finding the game, but just knowing, okay, if an elk pops up over there, I either need to use my laser rangefinder or I better start estimating, is that 300 yards or 400 yards? And certainly in a tactical sense, we beat that into the ground because it's so important and so completely overlooked are you aware of your surroundings? Are you on your phone? Are you going to get run over by a car or mugged? Or if you're in the drive-through of the In-N-Out burger, are you so buried in your phone you don't hear the guy or see the guy shooting? Obviously, there's two people that weren't, thank goodness. And when you were talking about that, Roy, I had to laugh. The one quote I saw in the paper was, when the guy realized there were rounds coming back at him, I know I'm paraphrasing, he lost interest in what he was doing. Well, there you go. And thank goodness there was two people there that were paying attention and ready to take action. But I just think this idea, people are, I believe, even more self-absorbed than we already were. And I think social media, the internet, et cetera, are some of the reasons. But if you're not observant, and I believe that's driven by curiosity, I want to know how Roy is shooting. I want to know why he's doing what he does. I want to hear what the instructor's saying to him. I may go up to him afterwards and go, hey, your group's really tight. How do you do that? It's that curiosity that drives the ability to observe and see and hear and just experience everything going around you. And that's a good thing, but in a strictly shooting / tactical / hunting / competition sense, if you're not aware of everything that's going on, ranging from internally to externally, I think you're really missing the point. And we've all been on the range with those guys that as soon as the shooting's over, and you're thinking, man, that guy, he's going to be a soup sandwich when it comes to a field situation. So that was kind of long, Roy, but I know that's something that is important to you too, is just being able to observe and see what's going on in the world around you.
Well, situational awareness will keep you out of 99% of the
Exactly.
crap that people get themselves into. I mean,
Yep.
this citizen who responded, both those guys, they responded because they were in condition yellow already. It was they were paying attention. They knew, they could see what was going on.
Yep.
And I saw the video, and everyone's fleeing in terror and running in helter skelter. And this one citizen, I mean, he got out, had good safety, got cover, took shots at the bad guy. I mean, that was preparation times 100.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, he had the wherewithal, he had the experience, he had thought through it, he's played what if. He made a commitment. I mean, for gosh sakes, he had a full size, duty gun basically, with a suppressor on it.
That's
I mean, that
incredible.
you don't stick that. Yeah, you don't stick that in your pocket.
Yeah.
He said he had it in a shoulder holster of some kind. But the reason he did that was, he said in his interview, was that he's a full-time caregiver for his brother who's an invalid.
Yeah.
And he said they like to go out in the desert and they like to go places. And he said, it dawned on me one day that I really needed to be here to protect him. And that's when he applied himself, and he got, and so he thought about, well, if I'm going to be shooting a gun in a defensive situation, I want to have a suppressor on it, so I can hear what's going on. And, anyway, he was real, he was a real calm guy. And I was hoping that he wasn't going to be some tactard. And
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah. And he wasn't. I mean, he's looks a bit of I'm an outdoorsy kind of guy, with a beard and a camo hat and stuff. But, man, he just did it. He's the one that said the suspect was acting pretty calm and pretty arrogant and walking around. He says, as soon as we shot at him, he says, as soon as I shot at him, he said, I just saw I think he said his arrogance crumble.
Yeah, I think that was the quote. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just, whoa,
Yep.
I thought I was going to be the cool dude here. So,
yep.
Well,
and you made a good point. I wanted to sidebar here that, the citizen was prepared. And of course there was an off-duty cop, and apparently he did what he needed to do. I think that's one of the things that, sometimes people, well, you were cops. Why do you always talk about cop stuff? Because any cop worth a damn every single day is either in a situation that could go bad real fast, and they have what ifed it, as we talked many, many times. So it sounds like this citizen did the exact same thing. He's not looking for a shooting, but he had the wherewithal to think, he's alert, he's oriented, and I guarantee you he's not thought of, okay, if I'm sitting at In-N-Out Burger on Sunday, but he's thought, okay, if I'm in my car and X happens, I'm going to do Y. That's one of the reasons, aside from just our life experience, we talk about being cops, because that's what cops have to do to stay alive. And the military does in combat situations, but that's what you need to do as non-law enforcement, non-military, is cultivate that idea of, I'm just sitting here at the drive-thru. What happens if a guy jumps out of his car with a rifle? What am I going to do? It may be run like a scared bunny. It may be run him over with the car, or it may be pull your gun and go to shooting. But if you are panicked and freaking out and trying to decide what to do next, you're already probably a prey item at that point. So,
well, that's where the old saying, if you never train, and when something happens, you always revert to your training. So if something happens and you've never trained, that means you revert to nothing.
Yep.
And so obviously in this gentleman's case, he reverted to whatever training he's applied, and all of this shooting is the same way. So when you pull your gun out and you're going to take a shot at a squirrel, well, that's the culmination of maybe months or years or decades of this training and this preparation and these building on the fundamentals and all of that kind of stuff. And so I think the gist to me of this episode is that too many people, and we saw this when all the laws went crazy and all the people who never owned a gun went and bought guns, right? They thought, okay, I have a gun and a box of ammunition, so I'm okay now. Right?
I'm the gunfighter from hell.
I'm the gunfighter from hell. So, I think people probably intuitively understand what we're talking about. I think many of them simply just don't apply it. Yeah. A lot of people have kind of blundered their way through it. Hey, I'm going to buy a gun today. Well, now, oh, I guess I need some bullets. Well, how does it work? You know, and so they just like by default, they eventually get to the point to where they're standing there and they're about to shoot their gun. But all of that has been built on their experience up to that point. And so, yes, learning to shoot, hitting, accuracy is all important, but safe gun handling skills, situational awareness, choosing the right equipment, knowing the laws, knowing what you're going to do, being patient, knowing what you're going to do if you're confronted with situations. And all of that, I arguably is more important to me than standing there and being able to hit the target. Because I know people who are really, really, really good shots who I would never want to be next to them if they had a gun.
Yep. I've got a buddy who's now departed that, he was a great shot. And that was another thing on my list is being able to control adrenaline, because if you're going to take a shot on whatever you're going to take a shot, if you allow yourself to get all wrapped around the axle, things tend to go badly. And that was that buddy that he wounded a lot of game because he got so jacked up by the act of actually taking a shot on a living critter. And I always wondered if we'd gotten into a shootout, if he would probably do the same thing. So anyway, I wanted to throw that in because I thought that was pretty important too. But everything Roy said, so there you go.
I know, and I haven't seen him in a long time for good reasons, but I knew a guy and I went dove hunting with him a few times, and 3 or 4 times. Every single time he had an AD.
Oh, geez.
He was loading a shotgun. He was unloading a shotgun. After the first time, I was like, kept one eye on him.
Well, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I was watching him one time. He's walking down in this little canyon, just a little below me. And, he's looking around, and then some doves fly over, and he goes to bring a shotgun up like this, and the shotgun discharges basically right in front of him into the ground, right? And he like jumps back, and then this is the hysterical thing. He looks all around to see if anybody saw him. Right?
Yeah.
And so I looked at him, and then later on I said, so what happened? And he gave me this long litany of excuses with, I think that there was a branch there and I think it caught the trigger and
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, okay. So maybe don't be that guy. But all of that is a culmination. I mean, I know he was a guy, I want to go dove hunting this year. So he went and bought a shotgun and a box of shotgun shells and showed up with his day pass hunting license. And that is not how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. So, okay.
All right. Well, there was a lot more skills that I came up with. I'd call them kind of soft skills because they're not shooting skills per se. They'll serve you well in your life as a whole. But anyway, we'd like to hear what you think some of the other important ones are that we didn't touch. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 of this someday. But reach out, editor@gunspodcast.us, or if you're watching us here on YouTube, you can always leave a comment down below, and we always read and check those things. So let us know what you think and what we missed. And of course, make sure you stop by gunsmagazine.com. I still write there. There's a lot of good stuff from Roy. We have new stuff all the time. And of course, there's newsletters. You can have great gun goodness delivered to your inbox every day, including the Guns Podcast US. And if you go to Guns Podcast US, not only will you find links to our show episodes, I always try to post at least a couple of things a week. So if you tend to enjoy my random brain firing, I got some stuff there. Plus, we've got merch. And Roy, I didn't get the Lethal Fud t-shirt. It's been a crazy week, but we're going to get that done. That's a high priority on my list. So we'll get that taken care of. But you can buy merch there and read some other stuff and find links to our podcast episodes. Gunspodcast.us. So anyway, on behalf of whatever title honorific I bestowed upon Roy Huntington, my co-host, I am, of course, your host, Brent Wheat, and this is the Guns Podcast US, and it's that time that we always say at the end of the show, now get out there and get shooting.